They took everything! Her money, her plans, her narrative. I mean, what is she supposed to do now? She can't ask for help because everyone thinks she's dead. She can't go back home because the man of her dreams, the love of her life, is her murderer. I guess she could call him the one who has always been there for her, always better than her husband, the one who tried to kill himself when she left him. Being perfect didn't save her from their violent charm. This is the tragic tale of the girl who was pushed into so many different boxes, she lost the shape of herself. Oh, who is she? Sorry, I forgot to introduce the two of you. This is Amy Elliott. She writes personality quizzes for women's magazines despite having a master's degree in psychology. One night in 2005, she meets a boy at a party. A great, sweet, gorgeous, cool-ass guy. Nick Dunne. They hit it off. A couple years later, Nick proposes to Amy at the engagement party her parents threw for Amazing Amy, a book character they created based on Amy herself. She's sort of an improved, optimized version of Amy. As Amy states, quote, "Amazing Amy has always been one step ahead of me. Amazing Amy was getting married. Real Amy was not. Nick made sure real Amy didn't feel left behind." That was cool of him. Amy Elliott adds a Dunne to her name. But you know what they say? Marriage is hard work. For other people at least, Amy guarantees that's not the case for Nick and her. They do treasure hunts for their anniversaries, at libraries, and buy each other the exact same gifts. They promise each other they won't be like all those awful couples. Wives who control their husbands, husbands who deceive their wives. It's perfect. Until things start to get complicated. The 2008 financial crisis comes around and both Nick and Amy get laid off their jobs. Amy's parents need to borrow from her trust fund, and Nick and Amy have no idea what to do next, but at least they have each other. Everything else is just background noise. The people we were in times of pleasure got killed by the people we are in times of pain. Nick's home, gaming, buying, doing anything but looking for a job. It stresses him out. Then he takes it out on her, throws the prenup they signed on her face, pushes her to be the controlling wife she never wanted to be, that she still refuses to be, even after he moves them both to Missouri to take care of his sick mom without asking. Amy doesn't feel like a Missourian. She feels like something Nick loaded by mistake. Something disposable. Nick's sick mom doesn't make it. R.I.P. Mama Maureen. They sell the brownstone in New York for less than it was worth, and she takes the last of her money to buy him a bar. No profit so far. Nick never pays attention to her unless he wants sex. Amy proposes something positive, a baby, but Nick freaks out. You really want to be the couple who has a baby to save their marriage? Amy didn't know their marriage needed saving. She says she can't go on like this, that she won't go on like this. Nick flips. He throws her on the ground. She hits her head on the stairs. The worst part is that he wanted to hit her more. She realized she was frightened of her own husband. Amy buys a gun for, protection. Nick wants her gone but can't ask for divorce. She's his piggy bank. She doesn't want to believe Nick would hurt her, but it's just... she'd sleep better with a gun, especially now that she's pregnant. She really wants to believe that this child might save their marriage, that Nick will actually love this baby. The worst case is that she could be wrong. Sometimes she feels like this cute, charming, salt-of-the-earth misery guy she's married to, this man of hers might kill her. He might truly kill her. Male fantasies is everything run by male fantasies, up on a pedestal or down on your knees. It's all a male fantasy. That you're strong enough to take what they dish out or else too weak to do anything about it. Even pretending you aren't catering to male fantasies is a male fantasy. Pretending you're unseen, pretending you have a life of your own, that you can wash your feet and comb your hair unconscious of the ever-present watcher peering through the keyhole in your own head if nowhere else. You are a woman with a man inside watching a woman. You are your own voyeur. I took this Margaret Atwood quote to therapy about 2 weeks ago. Not the whole thing, just the final 2 lines. I wasn't even referring to a male perspective on my behavior, although being a woman makes that perspective the default, but I was talking more about perfection. See, I grew up as a perfect child. I was the prettiest, smartest, most charming kid in a 3-mile radius. And that remained the case until I was about 10 and my mom was met with the disturbing reality that I am, indeed, flawed. It was the year I took second place in school instead of the usual first. Amy's parents are child psychologists who wrote an entire book series based on her life. Amazing Amy. Amy is an only child, so she had no siblings to be compared to. I'm an only child as well and can only be grateful my mom isn't a writer. Real Amy quit cello at 10, while Amazing Amy became a prodigy. Real Amy got cut from the volleyball team freshman year. Amazing Amy made varsity. Amazing Amy even got a dog to make her more relatable. Relatable as in human. I guess real Amy was never allowed to feel humanity. According to book Amy, the fact that her parents, quote, chose this particular public form of passive aggressiveness toward their child was not just up, but also stupid and weird and kind of hilarious. Kids like us grow up seeing ourselves as objects, a collection of traits, skills, achievements that makes us feel like The Sims rejects. Perfection is the baseline, it's the minimally acceptable, and we don't know who to be outside the performance of perfection. We learn to mimic the ideal person for every moment. At some point, this turns from a cage into a laboratory. Not only it prevents rejection and the terrible emotions associated with failure, but if you're good enough at playing the perfect person on the outside, you can be whoever you want on the inside. And the inside can become a dark place, believe me. It sure has for Amy. One of the movie's most famous moments is the cool girl monologue, which I know by heart and will recite it, don't you tempt me. In it, Amy explains the system in which she operated in order to live the perfect relationship with Nick. She played the cool girl. Cool girl is hot. She's game. She's fun. She's understanding and easygoing, so he's never wrong. She's there to serve him, emotionally and sexually, but never in a clingy way. She doesn't want to seem uncool. Amy knew Nick wanted a cool girl when she met him, and for him, she was willing to try. She was always waxed, skinny, and ready to him. She did enjoy some parts of it. After all, Nick was light, funny, easy. Such a cool guy. Until life changed. He was broke, she was broke. New York was dreamy, Missouri was predictable, as home always is. He lost the cool. Now he was just Guy. There's a moment in the book, and I don't want to get into the book too much, but it's not every day that we have a dense basis for the movie to draw from, where Nick describes his twin sister Margot as very intelligent. She made crazy money on the internet during the 90s, but lost it all during the dot-com bubble burst in 2000. She then got into investment banking, but got fired in the 2008 financial crisis. She left New York and went back to Missouri. The same path Nick would eventually follow, now having Mama Dunne's health as an excuse to leave a life of failed dreams behind. He says, quote, "We never talked about our old lives. We were dones. And we were done. And strangely content about it." Do you think a woman like Amy would be happy with this kind of complacency? A woman who, according to book Nick, needed to dazzle man and jealousify women. Of course, Amy can cook French cuisine and speak fluent Spanish and garden and knit. She needed to be Amazing Amy all the time. Amazing Amy needed, deserved, and fought for Amazing Nick. But Nick was just a guy who used to put in the effort, then stopped. Not only because Amy asked for too much, but because he wasn't willing to do the bare minimum. She became a symbol for what he left behind in New York, of his failure. That's how the cracks started to form. Nick was living in Missouri time while Amy had a New York clock. So it had to stop. Committing to Nick, feeling safe with Nick, being happy with Nick made me realize that there was a real Amy in there, and she was so much better, more interesting and complicated and challenging than cool Amy. Nick wanted cool Amy anyway. Can you imagine finally showing your true self to your spouse, your soulmate, and having him not like you? So that's how the hating first began. I've thought about this a lot, and that's where it started, I think. Amy's cool girl persona couldn't stand the test of time, but so couldn't Nick's cool guy. Book Amy says, "I tried so hard to be easy, but it wasn't sustainable." It turned out he couldn't sustain his height either. The witty banter, the clever games, the romance, the wooing, it all started collapsing itself. She says she hated him for being surprised when she became herself. She had to watch him drop his mask while she had to keep hers. Through the distancing, through the struggle, through the cheating. You are a woman with a man inside watching a woman. You are your own voyeur. I told you I was talking about perfection when I mentioned this quote, right? So, according to a Canadian case report on perfectionistic self-presentation, quote, "Perfectionism has been characterized as destructive based on its associations with psychopathology and maladaptive outcomes, including personality disorders, anxiety, drug and alcohol abuse, depression, shame, and suicide. Perfectionism is like hydrofluoric acid. It corrodes from within, and by the time you notice, the damage is already done." I am damaged. Every day I wake up and I'm not perfect. Every day I wake up and there's this boulder I gotta push up a hill for all eternity, and I don't even know who did I piss off to end up here. If this boulder has always been mine or if I'm pushing someone else's. If there's any way to ever stop being imperfect. All I want is to be perfect. Amy was a perfect child to her parents. They still wrote a better version of her. Amy had other boyfriends and, as we'll see, they still wanted better versions of her. Amy was a perfect cool girl and Nick still cheated with the newer, younger, bouncier cool girl. Nick Dunne took and took from Amy until she no longer existed. That's murder. Let the punishment fit the crime. To fake a convincing murder, you have to have discipline. First, Amy befriended Noelle, whom she calls a local idiot. She told Noelle all the details about her horrible marriage, about Nick's violent temper. She bumped up her life insurance and got Nick to sign it. She got a getaway car. She packaged herself so that people would truly mourn her loss. And America loves pregnant women, as if it's so hard to spread your legs. Amy fakes a pregnancy. She takes Noelle's pee and passes it off as hers, so a pregnancy can be added to her medical history. On the day she disappears, she takes her own blood to stage a crime scene. Broken table, blood on the floor, with just enough mistakes to raise the specter of doubt. She cleans poorly, like he would. Fakes a murder weapon, fakes a diary. Minimum 300 entries of the Nick and Amy story. Start with a fairy tale early days. Those are true and they're crucial. You want Nick and Amy to be likable. After that, you invent the spending, the abuse, the fear, the threat of violence. And Nick thought he was the writer. She burns the diary just enough for it to still be readable and changes the alarm code at Nick's dad's house to make sure the cops will find it. Finally, she honors their anniversary tradition with a very special treasure hunt. Once Nick realizes something bad happened and Amy might be missing, he calls the cops. Detective Boney, the GOAT, notices a few things are off about Nick and the crime scene, but she keeps it to herself. She takes Nick to the station, collects his DNA, asks a few questions about Amy, questions Nick can't answer. You don't know if she has friends, you don't know what she does all day, and you don't know your wife's blood type. Sure y'all are married? Boney tells him to call Amy's parents. The Elliots arrive and they all hold a press conference to let the public know about Amy's disappearance. This is hilarious. Jesus Christ. Ben Affleck's rendition of Nick is one for the books. Nick basically just states Amy's missing and asks anyone with information to please get into contact with the police. Everyone looks at him like, that's it, dude? The Elliots take center stage and ask people to come forward, but in a way people who care do. They say Amy's bright and beautiful and kind, that she really is amazing Amy. I guess that's some sort of activation code for Amy's mom, because she straight up just goes, Amy's a decorated scholar. She forged a successful career in journalism. Amy's value is not only directly correlated to her achievements, but to the perception that she is amazing Amy. Nick's little smile. They all sit down to talk to Boney about Amy's past, figure out if there's anyone who might want to hurt her. This is the first time his name is brought up. Do you know about Desi Collins? Nick says he knows all about Desi Collins. Desi was Amy's high school boyfriend, and in the movie, all the Elliots say is that Desi was obsessed and tried to kill himself when Amy broke up with him sophomore year. But book Nick has something more to offer. Quote, Amy dated Desi quite seriously for a year, but she began to find him alarming. He talked as if they were engaged. He knew the number and gender of their children. They were going to have 4 kids, all boys, which sounded suspiciously like Desi's own family. And when he brought his mother down to meet her, Amy grew queasy at the striking resemblance between herself and Mrs. Collins. The older woman had kissed her cheek coldly and murmured calmly in her ear, good luck. Amy couldn't tell if it was a warning or a threat. After Amy broke up with Desi, she returned from a dance one February night to find him lying on her bed, naked, on top of the covers, groggy from a very marginal pill overdose. Desi left school shortly after. Book Nick says Desi still calls her, sends her packages she throws in the garbage unopened. Nick read one of the letters he sent and it was just talk of preppy stuff, harmless. He says he couldn't believe slender dandy Desi would break into their house and violently snatch Amy away. Could anyone believe it was Desi? God, I've got so much to talk about Desi. Movie Desi is only allowed to show these tendencies later, but you can tell book Desi is very controlling. Just from this excerpt, it's clear Desi doesn't love Amy as a person. He loves a version of her he designed. To him, she's a version of his mother, whom he wants to have a version of his family with, a perpetuation of his comfort zone. When young Amy broke that fantasy when she burst the bubble of his comfort zone, he freaked out, staged a side to show how far he was willing to go to regain control. Desi is the inception of Amy as we know her. He loved Amy by erasing and replacing her with his version of herself, and he went to great lengths to protect that version. In the book, Amy even had a stalker, a girl who pushed her down the stairs in an attempt to take her place as amazing Amy. Amy's mom recalls, quote, I'm going to be your daughter now. I'm going to kill Amy and be your new Amy, because it doesn't really matter to you, does it? As long as you have an Amy. Like our daughter was a piece of fiction she could rewrite. Because it's not like you actually rewrote your daughter, right, lady? Anyways, these experiences shaped young Amy's perception of herself. Whether to her parents, her boyfriend, or to strange little girls, there was always a better version ready to take her place. So, young Amy's only option was survival. She had to learn control and manipulation to become the closest version of perfection that an Amy could be. The way some women change fashion regularly, I change personalities. What persona feels good? What's coveted? What's au courant? I think most people do this. They just don't admit it. Amy's economic upbringing also plays a huge role in how her behavior was shaped. An article called The Neoliberal Gothic brings that as a point of discussion. Quote, Amy essentially describes how the logic of consumerism gets taken to an extreme under contemporary economic rationalities. Consumption isn't just about material goods or experiences, but also about subjectivities. Amy is unsettling because she's just a more extreme version of the reader. We can see that when she says she needs to package herself so that people would truly mourn her loss. She knows everything is about branding, even people. Amy takes center stage when the topic is branding, but she's right. Most people do this. Nick does it, and not only does he do it, he's aware of it. Book Nick reflects on his branding, on his performance during the press conference, and how it contrasts with the Elliott's performance. No, because what do you mean Mary Beth isn't pulling straight from the Norman Desmond book? Quote, the news reports would show Nick Dunne, husband of the missing woman, standing metallically next to his father-in-law, arms crossed, eyes glazed, looking almost bored as Amy's parents wept. During the investigation, he realizes his narrative has already been written for him. Working class guy, spoiled rich woman, the perfect marriage until she runs out of money. To no surprise, Nick compares himself to Desi several times throughout the story. He sees Desi as the f***ing rich guy who would do anything for her. Nick grew up in a very different tax bracket than Amy and is clearly insecure about it, but I think that's exactly why she chose him. Despite their differences, Amy states during the cool girl monologue, quote, I can't say I didn't enjoy some of it. Nick teased out of me things I didn't know existed. A lightness, a humor, and ease. Amy has never felt more human than she did with Nick, because Nick didn't carry the same unspoken rules people in Amy's world did. He was a big middle finger to all of it. Desi wanted a perpetuation of his comfort zone, a performance of the family he grew up in. Amazing Amy Elliott would turn into Amazing Amy Collins, a character in other people's stories. She tried dropping the amazing. It didn't work. She learned to control it. Then, when she finally found happiness and humanity in a completely different story, the author dropped the pen. Back to the movie. Nick finally realizes how much trouble he's in, so he decides to get a lawyer. Tanner Bolt, patron saint to wife killers everywhere. Now that's a tagline. Nick goes over to Tanner, pinpoints two suspects, Desi, the obvious one, and a character that's exclusive to the movie, Tommy O'Hara. Amy and Tommy dated back in New York 8 years before the events of the movie. The Elliots said Tommy did something horrible to her, but the only thing they knew about it was that Amy decided to press charges. To investigate further, Nick decides to meet up with Tommy. Tommy is a subplot character, someone who, in another context, was in Nick's place but ended up underestimating Amy. During their conversation, Tommy reveals that the beginning of their relationship was perfect, until Amy tried to turn him into the man she wanted him to be. In the script, he goes further and says she wanted him to do the same for her. I wonder who she learned that from. Script Tommy says he broke up with her, while movie Tommy says he just backed away. In any case, he claims Amy snapped after that. Quote, she said you got physical with her? No, dude. She said I raped her. First degree felony rape. Did you do it? Did you do it? Point taken. Tommy says Amy showed up one night after that. A bottle of bourbon and a bootleg CD later, they're in bed. Quote, next morning there's 2 cops at my door. Amy has wounds that are consistent with rape. Ligature marks on her wrist and, you know, my semen. Did you ever see her again? Yeah, on TV last week with you. I thought, there's Amy. She's graduating from being raped to being murdered. Amy's behavior with Tommy isn't just a way to warn Nick and the audience about the lengths she's willing to go to regain control of the situation. It also shows us a glimpse of her perception of love post-Desi. When script Tommy says she expected him to do the same for her, it means that she turned into the indie rock dream girl for him. The indie rock dream girl was a persona Amy adopted for Tommy. To no surprise, he describes this version of her as perfect. In return, she expected him to not only upkeep the indie rock dream guy for her, but to become a more optimized version of him, to do for her what she was willing to do for him, present himself better, strive for more. Isn't that all we want from love? Reciprocity? While Nick's on his quest to find anything that makes Amy look bad, Amy is staying at some cabins God knows where. She's just eating and chilling until she finds out in the worst way possible that there's a character she can't perform well, the poor girl. Poor Amy acts weird enough to raise suspicions on two less than honest characters. They steal her money stash and run away. With no money and no strategy, Amy is forced to call him as a last resort. Suicidal lover boy. This is the exact look of disappointment I saw on my mom's face when I took second place. Amy and Desi meet. He's visibly surprised at her appearance. Amy tells some bullshit story about Nick wanting to kill her. That's how she disappeared. A live version of her diary. Desi tells Amy Nick came looking for him, tracked him through the letters he sent to Amy. Desi suggests she'd go to the police, but she convinces him she can't. He says he's setting her up at his lake house. Uh-oh. Nick's playing the game now. He knows that there is only one way to avoid prison, by bringing Amy back. In order to do that, he has to say what Amy wants to hear, to become who she wants him to be. He does an interview. Amy watches it from Desi's lake house. The house is, as Desi describes, utterly secluded. Cameras, locks, the whole nine. I don't want you to worry for one moment. There are cameras everywhere. The exterior, all along the grounds, the entryway. Anyone who is caught coming or going will be recorded. You are more than safe, and I'm not letting you get away again. Now that's something you want to hear from your unhinged, controlling ex-boyfriend. Desi says he knows what it feels like to be under someone's thumb. Amy says he was never under her thumb. You know how I know she's telling the truth? Because he immediately follows up with a new start, decent clothes, hair dye, makeup, tweezers. There's a gym overlooking the lake. The sooner you look like yourself, the sooner you'll feel like yourself. Can you imagine telling someone that you've been violently, domestically abused, only for them to tell you that the way to heal is to become nice to look at? Given Nick's stellar performance on the interview and Desi's entitlement over what he thinks Amy owes him, Amy finds herself strategizing again. She plays Desi's game for a little while, long enough to come up with a new plan. She performs again, this time for the security cameras, portrays Desi as her true abuser. She fakes ligature marks on her wrists and uses a bottle to fake rape wounds. Sounds familiar? An article called The Association Between Non-Suicidal Self-Injury and Perfectionism in Adolescence states that, quote, people with maladaptive perfectionism tend to react to failure with elevated levels of shame, guilt, depression, anxiety, and anger. It also states that perfectionism is a potential risk factor for engaging with non-suicidal self-injury. It is conceptualized as a multidimensional construct and commonly defined as setting excessively high performance standards accompanied by overtly critical self-evaluations. Something a lot of people wonder when watching Gone Girl is, why would anyone hurt themselves like that? As I mentioned, Amy fakes ligature marks and painfully fake rapes herself. She also hammers her cheek to better package herself as the abused wife. In the movie, she uses a butterfly needle to draw blood, but in the book, she cuts her own arm. Quote, my checklist for today, one of many checklists I've made over the past year, sits beside me in the passenger seat, a spot of blood next to item 22. Myself. She then goes on to say that item 22, myself, has been on the list a long time. Now it's real and my arm hurts a lot. It takes a very special discipline to slice oneself past the paper cut layer down to the muscle. So the self-mutilation was worth it. I've always been fascinated by this behavior because most people, myself included, fold inward when hurting. But Amy decides when the hurt happens. Enacting pain on herself, mistreating her own body can happen, but only in a way that serves the plan. She wants to hurt in an optimized way. That's also why the last step of her original plan was to end her own life and let her body be the nail on Nick's coffin. It's confusing for most of the audience how someone so perfect would do that to herself. Just to frame him? No. She already wanted to go. Her whole life has been building up to that. Nick just gave her a reason to do it in an optimized and theatrical way. The same kind of theatricality Desi reserved for young Amy. I had a new persona, not of my choosing. I was average dumb woman married to average shitty man. So I began to think of a different story, a better story, that would destroy Nick for doing this to me. A story that would restore my perfection. It would make me the hero, flawless and adored. Because everyone loves the dead girl. Her new plan gave her a new ending though. She pulls a Tommy on Desi, but this time, she makes sure he doesn't live to tell the tale. Cathartic, to be honest. He overdosed naked on her bed to manipulate her. Now she makes sure he never gets up again. She goes back home, tells the story of how Desi turned her life upside down. Bonnie doesn't buy it, but she can't fight the performance, can she? Amy comes clean to Nick about the real Amy, but she says she wants performative Nick. he ultimately accepts his fate by knowing that, at least in the story of their marriage, he's performing the hero. And isn't that all that matters? That at the end of the day, he's still charming. It's so tragic how, by the end, Amy's triumph is in owning a monster, one created by other people's idea of perfection, by all the men who ruined her mind until she became her own voyeur. After all, there's no better prison, because why be a warden when you can charm someone into violating themselves forever?